Okay. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone who's joined so far. A small piece of housekeeping before we start. We're going to be recording this session, so please can I just ask you all to ensure your cameras are switched off. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I am Madeline Jeunesse, and I am Head of Education for the Association of Cost Lawyers Training. Or ACLT, as we're more commonly known. ACLT is the training arm of the Association of Cost Lawyers. ACL is the professional association for cost lawyers, and they work to further the interests of the profession. Cost lawyers are a regulated profession, and our regulator is the Cost Lawyers Standards Board. Currently, in the context of ACLT, the Cost Lawyer Standards Board accredits ACLT to deliver the Cost Lawyer Professional Qualification, and we are the only provider of that qualification. So our course is the only one available if you are looking to qualify as a cost lawyer. I'm aware, sort of, when I was looking at the delegate information for this seminar, that there's quite a broad spectrum of people on this call. So some people are already working in a cost law setting and are very familiar with costs and how they work and how you qualify and train. Others are maybe completely new and have joined this call because they're looking to find out a little bit more about, the potential to have a career in costs and, what it involves. So in order to kind of cover all of that off, I'm going to talk very briefly about what a cost lawyer does, and then I'm going to hand over to two cost lawyers who are going to talk in much more colour and detail about what the work of a cost lawyer is and what they do. One of them is a current tutor on the ACLT course, and they will talk a little bit about tutoring on the course, and then we'll come back together. And I will talk on sort of a higher level about the Cost Lawyer Professional Qualification and what the course involves. And then we should have time for Q&A. The Q&A is enabled, so you can post questions in there as we go along. And at the end, we can work our way through them. Okay, so let's get started. Get onto my slide. Okay, so we're probably all very familiar with the term costs. We will be used to reading and hearing about legal costs in the media or on the news. When I was preparing this talk, I took some headlines from recent kind of high-profile news stories where costs have been mentioned, the most notorious being the Agatha Christie case, where I think the legal costs were about 1.5 million. But likewise, you're probably used to hearing about or reading about costs in your local newspaper. So here is a selection of cost content from local headlines and bulletins from the courts. So behind those headlines, cost lawyers are the legal experts in cost law and practice. So legal costs might include the fees that you pay for legal advice, the costs of bringing or defending court proceedings, and costs incurred by other parties to court proceedings payable by the losing party. Legal costs themselves can be very high, and the law on legal costs is complex. Some cost lawyers will have a particular specialism, so they might work solely on behalf of claimants or defendants, or some might only take on legal aid work, whilst others may deal with a much broader practice. Cost lawyers themselves will often work with other legal professionals, such as solicitors or barristers. They can be instructed solely by courts, solicitors, members of the public and businesses to undertake specific work relating to costs. Cost lawyers themselves are authorised to undertake specific reserved legal activities. So these are the conduct of litigation, the administration of oaths, and the exercise of a right of audience. So in the context of being a cost lawyer, that would mean that once you qualified as a cost lawyer, you would, most likely find yourself in court on matters relating to costs. So Okay. So within that, the work of a cost lawyer can include advising on fees paid for legal advice, e.g. to solicitors or barristers, the costs of bringing a case to court, the costs of defending a case in court, costs between the parties and legal aid and public funding. Cost lawyers have rights of audience, so represent their clients in court on matters relating to costs, and they can also be called as expert witnesses on costs in a legal case. Whatever way you look at it, cost lawyers are integral as in parts of a case, whichever party is giving the instructions, and a cost lawyer may be heavily involved in the management of a claim from the very early stage right through to settlement of the claim and to the conclusion on matters relating to costs. How do you qualify? Well, there's two elements. The first stage is completion of the cost lawyer professional qualification. So the cost lawyer professional qualification is a prerequisite to qualifying as a cost lawyer, meaning that you can't, by virtue of just doing the course alone, qualify as a cost lawyer. In order to qualify, you need to complete a mandatory period of 2 years qualifying experience taken before, during, or after your CLPQ studies. Some of you on the call may be very familiar with the previous training regime for cost lawyers, whereby the cost lawyer qualification took 3 years to complete, and the period of work experience you needed to complete was also 3 years. This is now reduced in the new training rules that were approved by the Legal Services Board earlier this year. So the period of qualifying experience is now 2 years, and that runs alongside the cost lawyer qualification, which is also 2 years. So for some of you, if you're already working in a cost setting and you come on the course, you may find that you're actually able to qualify as a cost lawyer in a relatively short period of time. I'm going to talk a little bit more towards the end about what the course involves, but I'm going to move over to our first speaker. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Travis Ruff. Travis is a cost lawyer with 18 years of experience in the legal costs arena. He started his costs career in South Africa, where he had his own business, and he's now a senior cost lawyer at Clyde & Co. He qualified as a cost lawyer in 2014, and he is a tutor for ACLT since 2016. Over to you, Travis.
Thanks very much. I thought I would just give you some, in the first instance, I'll just give you some background as to how I actually got involved in legal costs. So I basically started my legal cost career in South Africa in around 2004. I obtained an undergraduate degree in 2001, where I started working for a large retail company where I was predominantly dealing in labor law disputes. So it really had nothing to do with costs at all. But as a result of working for this company dealing with labor law disputes, I learned of the cost recovery between the parties. Now, cost recovery between the parties, sorry, my camera's not on. So cost recoverability between the parties is similar in nature in South Africa to what it is here. However, there is a difference in that in South Africa you deal with the old tariff system, which I think it used to be called the Rule 62 here in the UK. So it wasn't entirely the same as what it was where costs are recoverable pursuant to your retainer, the indemnity principle, etc. So I was introduced into the cost law through colleagues, and I opened up my own cost firm in 2005. So it was in 2008 that I decided to move to the United Kingdom, where I joined a cost consultancy in London in 2009. The transition from South African law to UK law was rather daunting, I'm not going to lie, but this was made less so by me joining the ACL cost lawyer course. Now, the course was somewhat different back then because I commenced the course in 2011. It laid the foundation for where I needed to be in my career and for where I find myself today. So in a nutshell, I found the course to be invaluable in my day-to-day work. It provides context to litigation that I would not necessarily have understood, which you would need to understand when conducting cost proceedings. So I think I'll delve a little bit more now into the role of a cost lawyer, or my experience of being a cost lawyer. So being a cost lawyer opens up a number of doors. It exposes one to litigation processes, as well as fully understanding the law of costs. Cost lawyer's role is diverse, in that you'll find yourself advising on cost-related issues, as well as integrating that knowledge into the general management of a case. Since the introduction of LASPO in 2013, cost lawyers are now actively involved in cost management, where we provide cost estimates on all types of litigation, from the dates of initial instruction right up to a fully contested trial. In doing so, we will prepare what we know as a percentage cost budget that will be served on your opponent, where you can enter into negotiations. If those negotiations prove fruitless, then you would have the opportunity to attend a cost and case management conference before a judge, who will then decide what is a reasonable amount for the parties to have in their cost budgets. So this means that, so why am I telling you this? Because this means basically that you potentially could have involvement in the litigation from the date that it first starts to right to up to the point that it is concluded, either by way of a trial or by way of settlement. This is obviously just one very small area of costs that cost lawyers have become actively involved in. Upon a conclusion of any case, the cost lawyer will also become involved in the detailed assessment procedure, which entails the preparation of detailed bills of costs that can either be dealt with by the court on paper, depending on the quantum of the bill, and also by way of oral submissions at a hearing before a cost judge. It also involves the preparation of points of disputes and points of reply. Along the way in the detailed assessment process, you may be instructed to make introductory applications, and these could relate to payments on account, so an interim payment on account for costs, or even a security for cost application if dealing with the actual substantive proceedings, obviously not in the cost proceedings. Drawing onto the introductory applications, during the course of the litigation, you could be instructed to also deal with the preparation of the statement of costs for an introductory application. So those introductory applications could range from, as I said, security for costs, specific disclosure applications. And also, during the course of litigation, you will be expected to advise on cost-related issues during the course of the proceedings, whether or not that relates to the consideration of your opponent's costs, or perhaps there's something that you need to advise on in relation to the retainer, and whether or not there's a breach of the indemnity principle. All these terms you'll get to know, obviously, but that will come more clearer in due course. Also, depending on what areas of expertise you excel in, there are numerous other specialist courts where the cost lawyer can be actively involved in. And this, for example, you can get involved in court protection matters, involved in the employment tribunal, the Privy Council, arbitration matters, legal aid matters, to name but a few. So that's generally what the role of the cost lawyer is, certainly by my perspective. It's by no means an exhaustive list. So I'll explain briefly what my career path has been like, and this is all really as a result of me having undertaken the ACL course and my experiences arising from the time that I qualified. So as I said earlier, I worked in a cost consultancy originally. I now work in the international law firm Carl & Co. At the cost consultancy, I was actively involved in, we should all know about the payment protection insurance litigation, as well as the phone hacking litigation. Predominantly prepared bills of costs for detailed assessment. Sometimes it would be well in excess of £1 million. And also prepare points of dispute and advise on bills of costs that come in that are also well in excess of £1 million. I also had the opportunity to attend numerous detailed assessment hearings while at the cost consultancy. Now, prior to 2013, you would have to attend a detailed assessment hearing for all bills of costs, but now bills of costs that are £75,000 or less will be assessed by the court on paper. So it's not necessarily the detailed assessment side of things, probably are a bit less now than what they were, say, 10 years ago. Going back to working in-house, my experience of working in-house has always been diverse. I often get instructed to advise on different retainer agreements, prepare cost estimates for client pitching, solicit client disputes, and also on international arbitration. So that's really all the cost-related work. But as a result of being a cost lawyer, I've also been actively involved in actual litigation itself, like in the actual preparation of civil litigation, where I've had the opportunity to assist with the preparation of a large defense and also to attend an 8-day trial, sitting behind counsel and addressing queries from counsel as and when they arise during the trial. I have also, so going back to cost-related work, I have also been actively involved in the preparation of points of disputes and a bill for in excess of £40 million, preparing bills of cost in excess of £10 million, not only in relation to between the parties' assessments, but also in relation to solicitor client assessments, so solicitor client assessment is basically where a client is disputing the level of fees that you have charged. And if that cannot be resolved by way of negotiation with the client, then the client can initiate solicitor client proceedings where the court will then decide what was a reasonable amount for you to charge. So along the same lines, but a slightly different type of assessment. So talking about a Solicitor Act assessment, I've also had the opportunity to attend an 8-day solicitor client assessment, where I was up against specialist opposing counsel. Cost quantum was in the millions. We were 4 days into the hearing and the matter was compromised in my client's favor. So why am I telling you all this? Well, what I'm saying is that once you've qualified and you have the relevant experience, you'll have the opportunity to not only be actively involved in cost issues, but also you'll be actively involved in ground-changing litigation. So your presence in the litigation will be noted, whether or not be through assisting with the actual litigation or from a cost perspective. My role as a tutor, so as has been said, I've been a tutor for ACLT since 2016. I've seen the course evolve to where it is today. It has always been an absolute privilege to work with students, to provide them with assistance, not only on the course, but to provide guidance to where they want to be in their legal cost careers. When it comes to tutorials, I believe in an interactive tutorial, where I would expect students to liaise with each other on problem-solving scenarios. Tutorials generally take place once a week for an hour. And I found that this time is best utilized in preparation for your understanding of the course material, and also obviously in preparation for any assessments that may arise in due course. In conclusion, I really hope to be working with you and in the future. And yeah, I wish you all the best on the course. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Travis. I'm just going to hand you over to our next speaker. So I'm delighted to introduce you to Ben Nethercott. Ben has worked in the cost arena for 13 years. He has worked in-house, assisting setting up of a dependent cost department. He's also been employed for a nationwide cost firm, climbing the ladder to head of advocacy, which was a role he maintained for 7 years. He's a seasoned advocate and has represented clients from county court all the way up to the Supreme Court. He's been described by the Legal 500 as being very approachable, creative and pragmatic in equal measure, and he's also ranked as a next generation partner. He attended the bar vocational course in 2008-2009, and he's also currently a non-executive director of ACLT, having been mentored by costs lawyers when he first started in costs. He really understands the importance and the value of giving back, and he currently mentors law graduates trying to find their feet in the legal industry. So over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Madeline. Hi, everybody. I've been asked to share with you my progression in the cost industry, and how undertaking the cost lawyer qualification has helped me to get to where I am. And my my story, I guess, is probably similar to one that you will hear from many cost professionals, and it's something that I hope in the future changes, because I never set out with the intention of working in legal costs, of becoming a cost lawyer, but actually I found that the career that I have to be thoroughly rewarding, interesting and challenging on a daily basis, and so I hope that in the future there are many people that want to embark on a career in legal costs from university. But I guess my story begins with doing law at undergraduate level, and the main aim of reading law at university was because eventually I wanted to change the world. I wanted to solve all the miscarriages of justice, and make my mark. I think those of you that have been in the law a long time realise that it is a very select few that have the opportunity to solve international miscarriages of justice. But nevertheless, we can all have an impact on law and decisions that are made. After obtaining my law degree, I followed the traditional route, or one of the traditional routes into law, and I attended the bar vocational course. And I think the only thing that I was told about costs was always to ask for my costs at the end. I completed the bar vocational course in 2009, but I was unable to get pupillage. But I still wanted to use the skills and knowledge that I gained in law. And so a legal recruiter approached me and said, "Have you ever considered being a cost draftsman?" I had no idea what a cost draftsman was, what they did, but I did a little bit of research, went to the interview, which was with a costs law firm, and was successful in getting a trainee cost draftsman job. And in a relatively short period of time, I realized that I was getting the opportunity to use the skills that I'd learned in my law degree, on the bar course. I was involved in negotiations, drafting cost pleadings, understanding the law, involved in client care. And I was also, at a relatively early stage, given the opportunity to go to court, detailed assessment. And I began to realise that I could have an enjoyable and successful career in the cost law industry, using the skills that I'd learned from my qualifications. About 5 years in to my cost career, I was given the opportunity by my employer to do the cost lawyer qualification course. This was in 2015, and I did a 3-year course and qualified in 2017. the great thing about doing the course was, or one of the great things about doing the course was, I got to learn other aspects of the cost industry that I wasn't involved in on a day-to-day basis. I had to draft a court of protection bill, which I'd never done before, legal aid, and different tribunal costs, which I hadn't to that point had exposure to. I also got the opportunity to meet some great fellow students, many of whom I'm still in touch with today. But the two major things that doing the cost lawyer course gave me, and Madeline touched on one of them at the start, the right to conduct reserve legal activities. So the right to stand up and advocate in court on costs, and the right to put my name to cost pleadings. And the second thing that doing the cost lawyer course gave me was confidence. I could put cost lawyer after my name. I could charge a higher hourly rate because I was more qualified. But most importantly, I felt like I now belonged in the industry. And that is the single biggest thing that I think doing the cost lawyer course has given me. The knowledge and the confidence to as a platform to help push myself to areas that I'm not sure I would have had the confidence to do if I'd have just remained as a trainee cost draftsman or a cost draftsman. It's opened doors. It's given me the opportunity to sit on the board of ACLT. It's given me the opportunity to advocate in the Supreme Court, and it's given me the opportunity very recently to embark on my own new venture, which is in collaboration with a fellow cost lawyer, started my own cost draftsman business, or cost lawyer business, I should say. And so, yeah, the takeaway really for me is that it has been instrumental and integral to my progress in the industry, and it has enabled me to proceed in an industry where I hadn't thought it was possible, having, not being able to get pupillage all the way back after I completed my BVc. So I guess the reason that I'm telling you all of this is to inspire you as to what could be achieved with, if you do embark on the cost lawyer course, and let you know that exciting times are ahead, should you wish to proceed in this industry. Thanks, Madeline.
Thank you very much, Ben. That was really really helpful and inspiring. Thank you. So I'm going to talk now a little bit about the new cost lawyer professional qualification, which is taking its first intake in September. So the new course has been divided into 2 years. So the first year of the course forms the Diploma in Civil Litigation and provides a kind of foundation of knowledge. And it comprises contract, tort, civil litigation and professional standards and ethics. It's important to note, and I will touch upon this later on, but the course does have quite a number of exemptions attached to it. So you may find, depending on your prior levels of qualification and your background, that you may receive exemptions from part of the course. So quite a typical exemption is to be exempted from part of year one, because most students, if they're coming with an LLB, for the sake of example, have studied contract and taught already. On year two, which forms a diploma in cost law and practice, you will study cost pleadings, legal aid, the lawyer-client relationship and funding arrangements, and practice and procedure in specialist forums. Cost advocacy is covered as a separate award, but it's taught during year two. So it's called the award in cost advocacy, but students will generally study that in year two. So the main features of the course are that the 9 modules are taught over 2 years. You can start the course in September or February. So we're currently taking admissions for people that want to start in September, but if you miss that boat or you're not quite ready, you can apply to start in February. There are exemptions available for previous legal studies. So when you're preparing your application, you can either contact us to get advice as to what you might be eligible for to be exempted from, or you can have a look at the exemptions policy, which is available on the ACLT website. The course is delivered part-time and it's fully online. So students generally do the course whilst they're in full-time employment. The learning material is delivered by way of an online learning platform. And then in terms of contact time, you would typically have an hour's tutorial for each week of each module. We do have some elements which are kind of compulsory seminars. And for the most part, we look to deliver those online as well, with the exception of cost advocacy, which is delivered as a face-to-face seminar in person. But everything else we try and do online. The exams are not delivered online, but you would submit any kind of assignments or assessed work online. And then the fees for the 2 years are circa £6,000 plus VAT. This might vary depending on whether you're claiming any exemptions or not. So if you want to find out more, I would really advise you to have a look on the ACL Training website. You'll find all sorts of information on there about the course, including kind of profiles of current students. There's a kind of a wide selection of profiles on the course of people that have studied the course or are currently studying the course and what they're doing with the qualification. You are always welcome to contact us by email, and we're very, very happy to have a chat with any prospective students or employers that want to know more about sponsoring their employees. But if you want to have personalised advice, I'm always happy to have a chat with anybody that's interested in studying. Our mailbox address is on this slide, and we'll be circulating the slides after the session is finished. You can also join our LinkedIn group where we post updates about the course, which is the Association of Cost Lawyers Training on LinkedIn. And we also have a Twitter account, which is ACLT Training. So I'm going to kind of close the sort of content of the webinar then, and just to say that I really hope that the speakers and the content would have inspired you to consider applying for the course or consider, becoming a cost lawyer. We hear so much in the kind of the legal careers and education news about training as a solicitor and barrister, and sometimes these alternative careers within the profession don't get the profile that they necessarily need. And if you decide to become a cost lawyer, it's worth noting that there are circa 700 cost lawyers in the UK or in England and Wales currently. So by becoming a cost lawyer, you will have the opportunity to kind of shape and develop a growing for expert legal community. So thank you very much to our speakers, and then I will open up for Q&A. I think there are some posted in the chat already. Okay, does a qualified solicitor have to do QWE to become a cost lawyer, or do they just complete the qualification? So the answer to that is that they would have to do 2 years of qualified work experience relating to costs. Although the requirements around qualifying experience have changed this year, so it's probably worth looking at the guidance available on this. Qualifying experience is dealt with by the Cost Lawyer Standards Board. So the guidance is actually published on the Cost Lawyer Standards Board's website. So it's probably worth looking as to how that relates specifically to your personal situation, and then contact ACLT and we can help advise on that. Okay, this is quite a technical question. Is the market in legal costs shrinking? How does it survive beyond fixed costs? I think I'm going to open that to Travis and Ben.
Thanks, Madeline. Yeah, Anthony, my current perspective is that fixed costs will have an impact on the level of inter-parties instructions, but in recent times there has been a significant increase in terms of solicitor-client instructions, because in circumstances where solicitors can only recover fixed costs from the other side, they will look to make up the shortfall from their client. Additionally, the introduction of cost management created a new stream of work for cost lawyers that didn't previously exist. And my experience again is that cost lawyers are getting more heavily involved at the outset of cases, providing estimates to clients and litigants. So yes, fixed costs will reduce a certain type of dispute within the costs arena, but there are other areas of disputes within the costs arena that are growing exponentially. And cost lawyers are resourceful. They've always found ways of adapting. This isn't the first introduction of fixed costs. There's been several, all of which have been sort of categorized as the end of the legal cost profession, but that's simply not been the case. And so I think it's an exciting time to be involved in the legal costs industry, and it will continue to grow.
Yeah, there's nothing further to add there from me. I think you summarized that very well, Ben. It's the same experience on my side.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. So this is somebody that's been a cost draftsman at legal aid solicitor firm for 5.5 years and has just completed a law degree and is looking at their options between the LPC, the SQE, or carrying on with costs. So without knowing the sort of specifics of the course that you did at the Open University, I'm presuming that you did an LLB, so you would at the very least be exempt from the first part of year one, which would reduce the study time down to sort of circa 18 months. And I would have thought that your experience as a cost draftsman would put you in good stead for your qualifying work experience requirements. So potentially you could qualify as a cost lawyer very quickly. perhaps was in as little as 2 years. But if you want to get in touch with us, and we can kind of look at it in further detail, then by all means, drop us a line and we can try and help you offline. Okay, so the next one is, how many exams are there per year and where are the locations where these will take place? So in terms of geographic location, we try and work it on a system where we look at the student spread. So we will try and host an exam in the north of England and serve with students that are in that part of the country, and then one usually in London for people living in the south. On the new course that's starting, there is one exam in year 1 for contract and tort, and there are 2 exams in year 2 for the lawyer-client relationship and practice and procedure. The rest of the units are taught by assessed work. So it's a mixture of kind of a sort of assignment-based assessment and exams. Okay, next question. In terms of rights of audience, would the qualification enable you to appear before a circuit judge? Travis and Ben, I think that's one for you.
The short answer is yes. Quite often appear in front of circuit judges on cost management or interlocutory application hearings, so long as the subject matter of the decision requiring attention from the circuit judge is related to costs, then yes, your reserved legal activities, your rights of audience, extend to appearing in front of a circuit judge.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next question, which is, do I need a law degree to become a cost lawyer? No, you don't need a law degree to become a cost lawyer. The course is open entry. We would strongly recommend that you had GCSE maths and English or equivalent, but in terms of an actual law degree, no, you don't need to have one. The first year of the course should kind of provide you with a foundation of legal knowledge to then be able to successfully negotiate year 2 of the course, and no, you don't need a law degree. The next question, I've done an LLB and an LLM from India, and I've been an advocate in the High Court for more than 3 years, and are there any exemptions that can be applied? I think this question might be a little bit difficult to answer within the parameters of the webinar, but if you want to contact me independently after this webinar, I'm more than happy to look at your what you've done and your qualifications and your experience and see how we can advise you. So if you contact me via the support@acltraining.co.uk email, I'm more than happy to have a chat. Okay. Where is a good place to keep up to date with legal cost cases and updates other than the SCC? Travis and Ben.
Yeah, LinkedIn, follow cost people, the ACL bulletin, Bailey itself regarding reported decisions, the Gazette, the Law Gazette. Those are just a few off the top of my head. I think probably the one I use the most is LinkedIn. I follow all kinds of legal professionals, including cost counsel, and my competitors, and quite often articles or recent cases are shared on LinkedIn. So yeah, but the ACL e-bulletin, which comes out weekly, the ACL news page, will certainly provide you updates on the most recent cost decisions.
Yeah, I agree with all of that too. In addition, so if you're following any like Cost Council on LinkedIn, what you could do is go onto their chamber's website, and generally there will be further information on cost related issues and latest cost cases on there. And sometimes you would also be fortunate enough to be invited to maybe a free online consultation on latest case law and developments and costs. I found that to be quite helpful as well.
Okay, so the next question is, does ACLT students link with potential employers? So one of the really good things about this course is that it's taught and authored by cost lawyers. So from the onset of your studies on the course, you are learning from industry experts, people that are in the industry currently and practicing. So that in itself opens up a kind of a network to you. We are looking at how we can maximize student engagement with employers across the delivery of the course, and that's something that's very much on my radar for the new course. But I would also within that urge students to look at the Association of Cost Lawyers. So when you come onto the course, you are a member of ACL as a student, and that opens up the network of cost lawyers to you who are members of ACL. So I would encourage all students to actually participate with ACL as your professional association, because, you know, productive engagement with a professional association really enhances the trajectory of careers. And it really is a kind of professional membership is a real career essential, I think, in terms of developing your profile and your expertise as you progress in your career. Do exemptions, i.e. the LLM, affect the fees of the course? Yes, they do. So for modules for which you get an exemption, you pay an exemption fee rather than the module fee. So it will affect what you pay. So I would have a look at the exemption policy, which is available on the ACLT website. And then if you've got any questions as to how much you'd actually pay across 2 years, then we can certainly help you with that. But yes, it would affect the fees. The fees that I quoted are if you're doing all of the modules rather than if you're doing the course but getting exemptions from some of them. I have 18 years practical experience in costs. I have an LLB in CLSB. What are the benefits of this course in terms of employment, and which exemptions would apply to me? So you are likely to get exemptions from your LLB and CLSB at least against the first year of the course. In terms of the benefits of this course, I mean, that the course will provide an opportunity to actually link what you're doing in practice to your studies. And in terms of kind of qualifying experience, then most likely a lot of the experience that you've amassed would be eligible for qualifying experience. So you could find yourself qualifying fairly quickly, I would have thought, without knowing the detailed specifics of your situation. Okay. Are course materials provided, or are there any reading materials that we need to purchase? What do the written assignments entail? Are they weekly, or are they at the end of each module where there is no exam? Thank you. Okay, so all of the course materials are provided and they're all available online. So you don't have to purchase anything extra once you are on the course. All the material is contained within the online learning platform. The written assignments are practical, so they are about the application of real-world practice to costs. So you'll find yourself throughout the course, producing documents that you will produce as a real-life cost lawyer. So, for example, advice, bills of costs, things like that, cost budgets, cost pleadings. So it's entirely designed to give students a really practical grounding in the work of a cost lawyer does, rather than the kind of the theoretical application of law that you might have done at sort of, you know, on an undergraduate degree, for the sake of example. In terms of exams, the exams are concentrated in 2 periods. So those of you who may be familiar with the old cost lawyer course would have been used to kind of a model where you're kind of producing assignments and exams, you know, much more frequently. The way the new course is designed is that assessment is concentrated in 2 blocks of time during the year. So these are January and June. So assessed pieces of work will be due in those periods, and exams would also be in those periods, but you're only being assessed at certain points of the year, rather than on the current course where you're producing assignments throughout the year. We have condensed all of this, so the students, it's much more easier to plan the course around their working commitments, because they know exactly when they need to consolidate their learning and prepare for assessments. Is there a cost lawyer's apprenticeship? No, there isn't, but it is something that ACLT have been looking at together with the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education. So for those who are interested, we are hosting a meeting to explore a cost lawyer apprenticeship. So it's a meeting to kind of look at starting an employer trailblazer. And that's taking place in September. So if you want to have further details of that, if you're an employer, because it is specifically for employers, then do get in touch with me if you're an employer that wants to take part in a trailblazer. But in terms of the development of apprenticeship, it would take some time to develop that. So although it is very much something that we're looking at, it's not something that's going to happen quickly. But it is something that we're starting to look at, yes. Does experience alone provide an exemption? Not yet, but that may change in the future. We may look at the possibility of work-based exemptions against part of the course, but that's something that we would need to consult on very closely with our regulators, so we don't have immediate plans to do that, or any plans that we have a very, very early stage. Is there a contact number so that I can discuss some of my qualifications, please, before I'm on this course? Yes, if you contact us, I'm very happy to book in a call with you. When is the cutoff for enrolment? Apologies if I have missed this. So the deadline for applying for September is the 20th of August. There may be some flexibility on this depending on your circumstances, but at the moment it's the 20th of August to apply for September, and then during the autumn we will open for February. What sets a new cost lawyer apart from an experienced cost draftsman, and what would the appeal be for someone who is experienced in cost to take the course aside from the right audience? Travis and Ben, do you want to pick this one up?
Sorry about that. So what sets a new cost lawyer apart from an experienced cost draftsman? Well, I think you've said aside from rights of audience, but I think if you're working in a cost consultancy, or even if you're working in-house, or if you're working on your own, being qualified would automatically, well, not automatically, but it would enable one to recover a higher hourly rate. So that could be an advantage towards your remuneration package, or if you on your own to whatever profits that you're making. The appeal is also for more recognition as a cost lawyer. I think along with the rights of audience, you also get, you're regulated by the CLSB, which comes with their own code of conduct and principles. And by doing that, I think that there would be more trust in a qualified cost lawyer for somebody who is instructing you maybe for the first time, rather to be instructed by somebody who's regulated rather than somebody who's not regulated. Also, what Ben was alluding to earlier, it is a case now where you can declare yourself as being a cost lawyer. You can now, kind of administer. You would be able to administer oaths. There's a lot of benefits from it, not only from what you've said, apart from being a rights of audience. Ben, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that Travis just said. I think being able to put cost lawyer after your name adds a certain gravitas. I think to an opponent or to somebody instructing you, they might not know how many years experience a cost draftsman has, but if they see that you're a cost lawyer, they know that you're qualified to undertake the work that you're being asked to do. So I think, yeah, it adds a certain amount of gravitas, because of things like what Travis said about regulation, and confidence for the stakeholder that's either using you or is up against you.
Okay, thank you both. We are a little bit limited on time at the moment because I'm conscious that we're coming up to the end of the hour. In terms of cost lawyer salaries, I don't have any immediate figures on that. I don't know if Travis or Ben have any industry insights. My suggestion would be having a look on someone like LinkedIn and seeing what typical salaries are for roles. But I imagine that there is a big range of salaries depending on the type of work you're doing and your geographic location and other types of firm and those factors. Do you have any insights on that?
My advice would be to look at Glassdoor or to look at legal recruitment job adverts to see what level they're advertising the positions as Madeline said. It is extremely varied based on location, experience, the type of work that the role requires. So yeah, it's essentially the same as asking what a solicitor's salary is like. It's a huge range.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so finally, if you're likely to be exempt from the first half of year one due to LLB, would you be able to enrol for September after the 20th of August deadline was in reason? We would certainly look to see what we could do to help you. So if you think that applies to you and you are interested, but maybe the timing is a bit tight, then please just drop us a line and one of us will have a chat with you and see what we can do to help. So I'm going to bring things to a conclusion there. Thank you ever so much to Travis Ruff and Ben Nethercott for contributing to this webinar and for all your advice and guidance and insights. I hope that you've all enjoyed the session and it's given you food for thought about your future legal careers and whether or not you'd like to become a cost lawyer. If anyone, again, has any questions, do get in touch